Serious? What was a rule in your household growing up that was actually totally ridiculous? One of the foster homes I lived in had a rule where nobody was allowed in the house unless the adults were home. So sometimes I'd have to sit on the porch from the time school got out, around 2:30 p.m, until like 8 p.m. when the foster parents got home from work, sometimes even later, even during winter. My stepmother had a similar rule which only applied to me. I wasn't allowed to be in the house if my father wasn't home. My brother and stepbrothers didn't have to follow any such rule. It really sucked during extreme weather. We were not allowed to talk during dinner. My dad just wanted to focus on eating. If you farted out loud, you were grounded to the bathroom until you could poop. I thought this was pretty normal until a friend of mine was over and questioned it. My dad's big rule was don't bleed on the rug. It was obviously just a way to de-escalate the bangs and bumps of kids horsing around. He would hear a smash from the other room, then silence, then call out just don't bleed on the rug. One time my brother cut himself. He was pretty young, maybe 7 or 8, and my dad came in with wide eyes and said you bled on the rug. Bleeding brother didn't get the dad joke and thought his life was completely over. Started crying hysterically. De-escalation backfired after years of build-up. No drinks at the dinner table. My mum would make gigantic portions, that is, 4 times the size of a regular meal, and force us to eat every bite. We'd often feel sick afterwards, which was great because that's when we had to do our chores. Later found out that she had an eating disorder and gave us quadruple portions so she didn't feel bad for eating a regular sized meal. Not our house, but in my grandma's house. No whistling. If you whistled, you were calling for the devil to come. Got to add a whistle to my shopping list along with nightshade, bat bones, and pencil lead. We were never allowed to be alone. We had to be in our parents' eye line at all times, and we weren't allowed to go to the bathroom without asking permission, even when I was 18. Everyone had to go to bed when mom felt sleepy, and she often felt sleepy at 7 p.m. Also, no TV cartoons. My dad had the same rule that everyone had to go to bed before he did. He and I both have bad problems sleeping, so I can see his point that he wouldn't want me running around making noise. No phone calls, ever. We could not call anyone and no one could call us, not even another kid's parent to say they would be late for couple or whatever. Phone calls from your boss at work? Nope. Work wants you to come early? No. You cannot talk to them. Don't call again. We weren't allowed to hang posters on the wall, even with a nice poster tack stuff that doesn't leave any marks. My parents were obsessed with preserving the resale value of the house. I had the girl room and my brother had the boy room. My room was painted pink, a color I never liked as a kid, even when I was very young, and my brother's was baseball themed. Brother could have framed baseball posters if my mom approved them. I was only allowed Monet's water lilies, also framed, because it was the only art my mom liked that went with the pink color theme. They've lived in that house for almost 30 years and have no intention of ever moving. How strict and often I would get grounded. Grounded at my house meant something different than what other people's grounded meant. When I got grounded I could do absolutely nothing. Wake up, got sit at the kitchen table, read a pre-chosen book all day that I had no interest in, go to bed. I was once grounded for 6 months because of AD. Also the insane amount of yard work I was made to do. Every weekend was yard work from morning until night, then back to forced reading until bed. My brother once got grounded and he had to write out the whole Bible. He left the house before he ever finished. Also I once got grounded because my stepmom thought I was worshipping Satan because she found my Diablo II strategy guide. I then had to throw away all of my CDs and the book and game. Whenever my dad came home from work, my sister and I had to go in our rooms for the rest of the day, except for when we needed to use the bathroom or eat dinner, because my dad would need to relax and couldn't do that with his children around. Even just sitting on the couch reading a book or playing quietly with toys bothered him too much, and would make him yell at us to leave. Childhood. We had to be quiet when we drove through Chicago because Oprah was filming there. I'm guessing it was because I was being too noisy or my parents were trying to concentrate on the directions, but I can't believe I bought into that for years. So you know how when you don't like the taste of something as a child you start gagging? Well, my mom's rule was if you gagged and threw up, you had to eat the throw up. I'll never forget her shoving thrown up boiled Brussels sprouts covered in stomach bile down my throat because I couldn't keep them down at dinner. Oh my god, this is sick. Your mom is sick. It wasn't the rule itself that was ridiculous. It was the fact that it was the only rule. Don't set the house on fire. That was it. I could do whatever the frick I wanted as long as the house wasn't a pile of ashes when my parents got home. Flood the sucker. For me, it was that Disney films were almost completely banned. I was allowed to watch Mickey Mouse. My mum felt that they were too saccharine and that I should not be lied to about the future. We actually all sat down as a family when I was about 5 to watch Mulan, then read the poem while my mum explained the differences. Joke's on her though, I watched Pocahontas at a sleepover, although this does mean that I have not seen The Lion King, Cinderella, etc. There were crazier ones, but the rule of no eating after 4 PM, as it might ruin our dinner, was the most annoying. Unfortunately, we didn't get home from school until after 4, so whatever paltry sum of food from the school cafeteria was going to have to be fine until 7 PM. Because that's when dad liked to have dinner. I'd get headaches a lot when I was hungry, so I usually had a headache most of the day. What's really funny is that each of us 3 kids had mentioned to our mother independently as adults that it was a crazy rule not getting to eat after school, and she denied having such a strict enforcement to each of us. Adults usually forget the little things that scar us, like how you forced your children to starve. Don't talk to dad and mom. I always thought that TV shows were making it up that there were parents who talked to their kids without yelling and cussing. They used to tell me there were no such families. It was all just TV. We weren't allowed to play video games during the school year, so the NES N64 were nicely boxed and stored 9 months each year. However, we could watch TV all day long without a problem. I can't play Mario, but I can watch telenovelas. Awesome. When my older brother was growing up until he turned about 14, he was never allowed to wear black t-shirts. That was probably when my mother was at her most super Christian stage and thought that the color black was satanic. Of course she doesn't care anymore. She's honestly a wonderful mother and we all laugh about it now as adults. I was the only one in the house not allowed to wear black. I was really depressed at 13 and my parents said I could only wear happy colors. Looking back, I understand why they did it, but I think my bro and sis should have had the same rule as well. But this was also the mother who chained the fridge shut when my sister was overweight instead of, talking to her and helping. I had a 10 PM bedtime from age 16 until I moved out. I turned 18 in July and moved out in August. The only exception was if I had work. I got grounded for a week because I was up reading. 5 years later, my then 13-year-old sister came home falling down drunk around midnight. My mom was mad, but my dad just laughed. No punishment. Being the oldest sucked sometimes. Everyone has to put an ornament on the tree or else the house will blow up. I love my father. When I started to go through puberty, my mom wouldn't let me out of the car to go to school until I caked a lot of makeup on me. I was also very tomboyish. Nothing wrong with that. And I also didn't like wearing makeup at the age of 12. Totally nothing wrong with that. Many reasons why I was totally against it, but if I didn't, she would start having screaming fits at me in the parking lot and that would be really embarrassing, so I usually didn't put up a fight. One day I went to the bathroom immediately after she dropped me off and washed all the makeup and went to sit in the gym where everyone waited for school to start. That's when I realized the degree of how messed up she made me look every day. A friend of mine immediately pointed out how great I look without and how I usually wear too much makeup. They never mentioned it before. I told them how my mom was making wear insane amounts of makeup and they didn't believe me. This is so strange to me because I was never allowed to wear any makeup at all when I lived at home, for religious reasons. I would sneak mascara to school and put it on, then take it off before going home. I also wasn't allowed to wear my hair down, had to be braided in a ponytail, any jewelry, or pants. Father gave my mother a cordless phone for Christmas. When using it, we had to sit next to the wall socket, not walk around, because its cordless advantages were her gift and her benefit only. That sounds like dad trolling. We weren't allowed to watch SpongeBob because apparently SpongeBob was the devil. My parents were ridiculously strict Catholics. I still don't see how they could think negatively about the Charmed Striped Sweater song and Gary the Snail. We had to ask before we started playing with a new toy, and we didn't usually get to play with more than one type of toy at a time. For example, we couldn't play with Legos and Barbies at the same time. I wasn't allowed to bring my boyfriend upstairs when I was in high school, but I was allowed to bring him to our fully finished basement with a relatively soundproof door, including a bedroom. Maybe my parents figured we were going to frick anyways, so send us to the part of the house where they couldn't hear it. I got grounded one time, and my punishment was I had to wear V-neck shirts to school. I didn't understand why. I was about 10 years old, and my dad said, "You'll see why," which I now understand to mean that his intent was for me to be ostracized by appearing gay. Jokes on him, because 16 years later, V-necks are in and being gay is totally cool. There was a kid at my high school that always wore V-necks. He was totally straight, but he rocked that look. I was always a bit jealous of his fashion sense. I wasn't allowed to trick or treat. I wasn't either, because of Satan. You can't have a friend spend the night because you're a lesbian and you'll pay them and then their parents will sue me. My grandmother is a C. We weren't allowed to say what. I'm not joking. My mother would lash out if we said it. She was pretty weird. My mum had a book called Turmoil in the Toy Box written by this utter nutcase Christian guy who saw Satan in practically every toy of the 80s. So, not allowed to own troll dolls because there's no such thing as luck and wishing. Not allowed to watch or read the X-Men cartoons, comics, or watch TMNT because no such thing as mutants, they're not of God. Was allowed to own Barbie dolls but not Cabbage Patch dolls or Care Bears. I don't even know why Barbie was okay but the others weren't. Rainbow Bright was bad because the rainbow should be reserved for the Noah's Ark story. Boy did she have her eyes opened when we accidentally stopped to watch Mardi Gras in Nick back in 1995. Not realizing what it was till topless ladies were walking right past us. She's fine now. She just grew up in a super religious family in a small town, so she had some really weird ideas. She relaxed a ton as we got older, but from ages 1-8ish for me, those were the rules. Not really a rule, but when I was about 10 we moved to some barn house in the backwoods of Maine. My parents had just divorced and my new stepmom was a real bee. She convinced my dad to put my bedroom into the attic so that she could have a computer room inside the actual house, where it was air conditioned and heated, unlike the attic. And I'm not talking about some nice attic a book writer might use as their office. I'm talking like the attic from the movie Sinister. It was big with nothing in it but my bed and a lone dresser toy box. The attic had holes in the ceiling, windows, and cobwebs everywhere, which they didn't clean. Poor insulation, so cold as heck in the winter. Also, before this I had been sharing a bunk bed with my sister, so when I moved to the attic, instead of buying me a new bed they got me a camping cot to sleep on. At that age I had trouble sleeping without a light on, so I would turn on the only source of light in the attic, a hanging bulb with one of those pull switches. She found out and took the light bulb away. I wish I could make this up, but sadly my imagination isn't that good. She was just really evil and had my dad totally wrapped around her finger because some might consider her decent looking. My parents were very strict about chocolate. What makes it seem ridiculous now is the amount of non-chocolate sweets we would eat that are just as bad for you as chocolate. But my parents didn't see it that way. One thing in particular that stands out is that if they got Dunkin' Donuts coffee in the morning, we all got donuts, but no chocolate, as if a glazed or vanilla cream donut is somehow better for you. My mom made me take off my shirt to eat at the table until I was like 14. I am a girl. We had to say grace before each meal. I found out later on that my parents were both atheists. Does that make any freaking sense? Washing your hands in the kitchen sink was a cardinal sin. Hand washing should happen in the bathroom only. I still can't figure that one out. My dad said this one all the time, but no one ever honored that rule. Today, even he washes his hands in the kitchen sink now. Single male child, and I was never allowed to have the door to my bedroom closed, day or night. Frick that for so many reasons. Had to go to bed at 8 PM until I was 16. No exceptions. After 16 I had to be in bed, but I could stay up and watch TV. Just couldn't leave my room. It was so my dad could smoke pot and not be caught. I had to take my pills. I'll explain. My mother took me to doctors starting at about age 6 and told them I had symptoms I didn't have. Things like acting out, not being able to focus, etc. I'll cut it way short, but I will say it escalated quite a bit, and by the time I was 18 I took 22 pills each day and had more than a handful of psychiatric hospital visits under my belt. Moved in with my dad when I was 18 and immediately stopped taking the pills. I'm a normal, functioning guy with no mental illness. Seems hard to believe it was so long ago, but I kinda regard coming off the pills as the start of my life, and I don't remember much before then. Haven't spoken with my mother since, and have no contact with my siblings. It's kinda sad, but I'm quite literally not the person they grew up with. We were only allowed to shower bathe every other day at the most. According to my husband and his siblings, they were only allotted one shower a week growing up. He used to get up in the middle of the night and sneak showers. He also grew up to be a major obsessive clean freak. The remaining siblings are all dirtballs. No noise while eating dinner. If our fork or knife scraped the plate, or our spoon clanked on the bowl, they took it away. Eating peas or soup was especially rough. No eating after 9, even if you were starving or sick. We would sneak up at night and wait for our parents to fall asleep and try to eat then, but if we got caught they took everything that didn't require cooking into their bedroom and we never saw it again. Can't be on the phone longer than 5 minutes or they would unplug the cord from the wall. Also, we had to use the phone into the same room with our parents present. No alone time on the phone. Not being allowed to make a mess with the wrapping paper on presents or rip it too much or else we got yelled at. Open it from the corners. There is no need to tear it one present at a time. One person at a time. Took over 2 hours to open gifts at Christmas. We had to find some place to go every single weekend. We were not allowed to be at home because it was my parents' break time. We spent a lot of time at our grandparents and at friends. If we stayed at home and couldn't find anywhere to go, or were sick home from school even, we had to spend the entire day in our room and were only allowed out for bathroom and meals. We couldn't walk around in our nightgowns or pajama pants, neither me, my sister or my brother, because it was inappropriate and indecent. In the summer, we would even get in trouble for sleeping in our rooms when it was like 90 degrees in our underwear. Like, in our own bed only. No hall light on or night lights of any kind. Even as young children, my stepfather was the only one allowed in the recliner, and if my mom was sitting on the couch, the kids had to sit on the floor and give her the entire thing to herself. Absolutely no talking in the car. Period. Like, even on 6 hours car rides. Not even to ask a question. No noise whatsoever. No laughing. Like ever. If my siblings or even my mother were caught laughing by my stepdad, he told us to knock it off and stop acting up. If we kept it up we got sent to our rooms. We were not allowed to eat any of my stepdad's junk food or cereal. He would flip crap if we even had, say, one out of an entire box of Twinkies. Yet he never bought us any, and would purposely bait us to get in trouble by leaving a box of them on the table or counter for weeks and counted them every time he came home from work. Only one box of cereal was allowed open at any given time. My stepdad would inspect the cereal boxes daily, and if more than 2 were open he would take the second one into his room and we would never see it again. At my grandmother's house, if a bottle of alcohol was opened it was to be finished. It's apparently a Russian thing. You've been visited by the bush Papa Boop Nose for 10 years. Good luck and cuddles. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.